Before we get started, I'm going to give a shout out to a viewer. This is Wilfred. I appreciate you, Wilfred. I appreciate you watching online. And don't think that this is my cat, because this is not my cat. This cat doesn't even live in Georgia, but is a watcher, and I appreciate you. Now, we start with apologetics. We start with apologetics. Continuing in this section, the Bible is the Word of God. That is what we are out to prove, that it is the Word of God. And as we started weeks ago, actually back in January, we talked about the various fields of science and the various things such as philosophy that we were going to have to cover in this. That there are matters concerning the universe, matters concerning the atom, matters concerning actually the building of nations, and we will get there soon enough, I hope. But our quote for today is from Alan Sandage. This concerns the origin of the universe. He died in 2010. He was an astronomer of significant note, and he worked on what is known as the Hubble's constant. Sandage had been an atheist, but in looking at the beginnings of the universe, of how everything had to start, he says this concerned the origin of the universe. Here is evidence what can only be described as a supernatural event. There is no way this would have been predicted within the realm of physics as we know it. And that's correct. It would be silly to say that by way of physics, a universe should just appear with just fully functioning and with everything about it, everything fine-tuned in it, as far as its laws, as far as everything necessary in it. And I don't know if I've brought this up or not, but there is a problem with the Big Bang concerning lithium, that lithium shouldn't even exist. And I know that's a weird thing, but it is true that lithium should have been destroyed with the heat of the Big Bang. All right, the Bible, this is what we've been doing. The Bible describes cataclysmic events on the earth as history. If the Bible is true, we would expect to find evidence of these events, and we have been looking at different angles in this, showing that there is plenty of evidence. Last week we looked at dinosaur graveyards and also fish graveyards that showed that these animals were all buried alive and buried together in one massive event. That the dinosaurs found in Dinosaur National Monument, they didn't die one by one and were buried over and then fossilized. All of their bones intertangle. Their bodies were together when they were buried. And buried how? Buried by silt. Buried by a sediment, what would be sedimentary rock. That you have mud coming over them, burying them, and in time it hardens into rock and to be discovered today. Now, we are continuing to discuss the worldwide flood. And I don't need an ark in the mountains of Ararat to believe that Genesis 6 through 8 is true. I don't need that. That is something that can be faked. But what we're looking at can't be faked, because we're looking at things worldwide and on a huge scale. But here we go to usual argument number 5. And this is pre-flood. If there was a civilization of giants and mighty men of old, men of renown, that's from Genesis 6 and verse 4. I'm not making that up. Before the flood, if we had civilizations like this before the flood, then we would see evidence of that civilization. We'd see something about it. And let me just explain something quickly. That because I'm filling in for Bob, or have been filling in for Bob on Wednesday nights as he was getting ready for surgery, and tonight he says he wants to be here, but he may not be. What I've been doing is continuing these lessons at night. Last week, on Wednesday night, we talked about Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. And that would be a strange thing now that y'all don't even, most of y'all wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. But these are very, very ancient sites in Turkey. Very, very ancient. When they were discovered, they always say this rewrites our understanding of humanity, and then nobody rewrites anything. That's what's done. This is an astonishing find, and this would change the way we think about humanity, the way we think about human history, and then nobody really does anything about it. Or nothing big anyway. But Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe is so ancient. Could it be prior to the flood? It could be. I have no proof of it. But Göbekli Tepe is an extraordinary place. And last week we looked at various things from it. We have these unique shaped columns that are there. These, if you can make it out, they're T-shaped columns. And it's very, very unusual, and with sculptures on them. And this is, as we were discussing last week, it would generally be thought by the usual suspects that when Göbekli Tepe was created, that humanity was nothing but hunter-gatherers. That's all we were. And if we're just scavenging about the countryside, you don't do things like this because you're incapable of doing it. You don't have time to do it. You don't have the means to do it. You're too busy looking for the next meal. You're going around and you have no permanent sites. You have to follow, as we would say, you have to follow the buffalo. You're constantly having to do that, and you can't make permanent sites like this. And they're not sure, I mean, it depends on who you're asking, as to what Göbekli Tepe was completely. Obviously, in my mind, I see a place of pagan worship. That's what I see. But it's a massive place. It's huge. And here is some of things that have been found there. There's also Karahan Tepe, which is evidently an older site still. And is it possible that these are people that came out of Babel? It's possible. It's possible. But we have a lot of other things that came out of Babel that don't look as ancient as this. This may very well be prior to the flood. Now we have another thing. If you can make this out, this is Israel, and we're looking at off of Haifa. It's off the coast of Haifa. Off the coast, and I do mean in the Mediterranean, that they have found a burial site, a human burial site. And this is obviously you don't have people that go, especially not in the ancient world, nor today either, that go into the ocean and bury their dead deep in the ocean. You don't do that. This had to have been on dry ground when it was done. And yes, there are those that believe that and I don't know if it's true or not, that the Mediterranean at one point was not a sea, that it really was not connected to the Atlantic Ocean. that it was closed off there at Morocco and Spain, or the Rock of Gibraltar. It had no water in there. Now, I can't prove that one way or another, but obviously this is off the coast of Haifa, and this was dry at one time. And because this body was buried, it was preserved. Because it was buried, it was preserved. As we talked maybe last week, I can't remember, that with bodies going into the ocean, whether it's fish or human or animal, something dies in the ocean, everything about it is consumed. Everything. There are things that live on the bottom of the ocean. That's what they feed off of. And there's nothing left. There will be no bone. There'll be no remains whatsoever. But this one is full, as far as skeleton is concerned, is fully intact. That's because it had been protected. It was buried before there was any water over it. Now, I want you to notice something, because I want to bring something up. This is what they call the flex position. The flex position. And its head, this person's head, is facing west. All right? Facing west. There's another strange thing. Hang on. I just want to show you other things that are around that burial site that are down there. This is also, it's Atlit Yam is where this is, and there are other things showing humans making things down there. This arrangement of monoliths. Concerning this skeleton, this is another skeleton, but this is found in Florida. This is an extremely ancient site in Florida, and it's the same thing. The body is put in a flex position, and the head is facing west, and this person, actually it's a burial ground. They've been buried in a bog, and because they were buried in a bog, they've been better preserved than they would have been in the ground itself. And they actually can get DNA off these corpses, off these burials. And the DNA does not match any native population alive in North America today. This is somebody from the distant past that has no descendants. Now we go to Dwarka, India, off the west coast of India. There is a sunken city there. Am I saying that this is pre-Diluvian, that this is before the flood? Not necessarily, but I just want to show you that there are things in the ocean, and that this is obviously a very ancient site as well. This is off the coast of Sicily, Pantelleria Vecchia Bank Megalith, and this is found in the Mediterranean. If you can make that out, you've got the diver there and this rather large rock. This rock, if you can make it out, has a hole that's been drilled through it. And nobody argues that this is man-made, that the rock was brought somewhere, the rock had been cut into. In one spot, it's all the way through the stone itself, that someone did that. And the question is, when did all of that happen? Well, that's a good question. This shows the various holes that are in those stones. And the next one, okay, I just want to get to this one. This is Yonaguni Jima. This is the last island of the chain of Japan, and it goes just off the coast of Taiwan, just off the coast. But I want to preface this, that there are things that are out in the world that may look like something, but they may look man-made, but they're actually natural. All right, and we can get caught up in things like this. When I first saw this, I thought, wow, look at this thing. But in being able to look more at it, came to realize, no, this isn't man-made. This is absolutely natural. But you see something like that, if you can make that out, you have this diver down here with these huge steps going up to what would seem like some sort of, well, like a temple or something like that. But when you look at it further, you see that no, this doesn't look like it. It's too random now, this doesn't make any sense that you have bigger stairs and followed by smaller steps and narrow ledges and things like that. But you look at something like that, you think, wow, yeah, that does look man-made. But I personally don't think that it is man-made. Now we go to usual, and I'm just saying that as a warning, that especially these days with AI, they can make you believe something. And it could be someone who is, God doesn't need you to lie for Him. He doesn't need you making up evidence for Him. He doesn't need that. He's got plenty of evidence. He doesn't need you doing that. But there's also others that there's a bit of a nefarious nature behind it, just to make people believe something, and they know they created it. They made it up, just as a joke. As we were talking about not too long ago about Piltdown Man, of being a complete fraud, and it could have been a joke on the man who found it. That's what it could have been. We don't really know. It was discovered to be a complete fraud. But usual argument number 7, if there was a global flood and if everyone traces their ancestry to Noah, then the flood should be remembered and passed down by everyone and not just in the Bible. All right, now this is one of those things of where we've discussed this. Somebody asks for proof, and you provide the proof, and they shake that off and they want different proof. Okay, what about this now? Without thinking, do you not understand the ramification of the answer you just got? It's because it all comes down to never God. That's what, with some folks, it's never God. Anything else, if we want to talk about space aliens, they're happy to do that. They're happy to do that. Or just cosmic accidents, they're happy to do that, which is the same as miracles. It is, if it's a beyond nature, that's called supernatural beginnings. All right, they're happy to do that as long as you don't put God anywhere in the equation. All right, so here is one of those things. It should be remembered and passed down by everyone, not just in the Bible. And this reminds me of an anthropology professor I had years ago in discussing things like this. And it was flood myths or flood stories around the world. He was talking about that. And how is it that everyone has this memory about it? And it's also in the Bible, and the biblical account is far more, we will say, down to earth and rational. It goes into the why and the background behind it, and how Noah is to save himself with an ark and all the dimensions to it, and all the everything about it, and the feasibility of it. We talked about the feasibility not too long ago. But okay, so we do have global flood stories. The flood left a huge impact. Yes, if Grandpa Ham told you about being in the flood, Would you tell that to your children? Yeah, you would. And if great-grandpa Noah talked about it as well, and actually had a greater knowledge because he lived 500 years longer on the other side of the flood, talking about those things, would that have an impact on you, and would you move that on to the next generation and that next generation to the next generation? Yes, they would. And while everyone comes together, or most come together in Babel, everyone's going to scatter out of Babel, and they're going to take all that common knowledge together. They're taking it out. They all know about what Grandpa Ham said, or Great Uncle Japheth. They know what they said. All right, there are approximately 600 flood myths, and these are from every continent except Antarctica. All right, they haven't questioned the penguins yet about it, but except Antarctica. But like with my anthropology teacher, and talking about all of these flood myths, his only response was, well, that's weird, isn't it? Well, it's more than weird. It's trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you that this probably happened. This probably happened. You're getting twisted versions of it because everybody's taking it, and being that it's passed down by mouth, it's passed down by the spoken word, it gets changed along the way. And we know how that can happen even in a small group. That can happen. All right, so it's spread everywhere, and there's not a single continent on the earth where the people living there did not have historically a flood event, a flood story. And they all carry the same identical plot, by and large. Now, some of them may have missed some of these points, but you're going to find the majority of them in all of them. Man in the ancient past became great and wicked. Deity, whoever you decide that is, deity decided to destroy man by a flood. And that flood isn't necessarily water. It could be something as weird as blood. Depends on whose story you're talking about. One man was told how to survive by building a craft. All right, now we talked about maybe a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, that the word ark does not mean boat. It means box. The Ark of the Covenant is not a boat, it's a box. Moses was put in an ark that was of bulrushes. That is it's like a basket he was put in. And but this is building a craft. With some they'll have it as a boat. With some they'll have it as something. Who knows? There could be some very, very weird things. Animals are placed in the craft for their protection. The flood destroyed everything except those in the craft. The flood dried up. Survivors landed on a mountain. Mankind starts anew on the earth. Now, there are too many things that are coincidences. And I'm not just talking about this, because there are a whole lot more coincidences, if we're going to call it that, than just a flood story. Because there are other stories as well. And there are other things that get passed down as well it would be a thing of common knowledge. And sometimes they creep up in various ways that you did not expect. Okay, now here we go. Find another ancient story so widespread with 7 points of identical plot line. Okay, I can tell you of another ancient story that is widespread. It doesn't have 7 points. It has fewer points, but it's still from the Bible. And it's Babel. Babel also had those talking about it. Leaving out of there, if you left out of there, having witnessed what happened because you would have been part of it. Yesterday, you're speaking one language, understand everybody. Today, words are coming out of your mouth you've never pronounced in your life, and you pronounce them fluidly. And everybody except your family is speaking weird. Something happened. You're going to remember that. Even if you were a child, you would remember that. And going out, you're going to tell others about it, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Okay, so here we go with the Epic of Gilgamesh. This has what is commonly referred to, included in the epic, is the Babylonian flood myth. The Epic of Gilgamesh is, in fact, the oldest story or epic poem that we have thus far. It's possible we'll pick up something even older, but it is recorded on clay tablets. And this would have been shortly after Babel. And shortly after, I mean within 100 years or a couple of hundred years after Babel. I don't have it that accurately. But the Epic of Gilgamesh is found in clay tablets produced in different centuries and in different languages. It continued on. So it's not just the Babylonians doing it, it's others who are, the Assyrians were also repeating it in a different language. The Assyrians were doing it. Believed to be written about 3,700 years ago in the second millennium BC. All right, so this is very, very old. And in 1912, it was 1912 is when it was discovered after having been forgotten for a long, long time. It fell out of memory. It fell out of everyone's memory. But it's in 1912, it's brought into the first modern language translation. But that's years after it was actually found. One of the oldest known versions is written in Akkadian, but includes 5 Sumerian poems thought to have older origins. The entire work is believed to have been sung to King Solgi of Ur, and he predates Abram. And here are some of the things we need to understand, is that the Epic of Gilgamesh is not written in Hebrew. All right, when Gilgamesh was written, there was no Hebrew language at that point. It would take more time for that to develop. It would be coming out of this family group. But it's not in Hebrew, and it's also in different languages. And so in Hebrew, Noah is the name we know, and that means peace. But in the Epic of Gilgamesh, depending on which language version you get, Noah is called Ziusudra. That's early Sumerian, I do believe. He who has long life, and he was believed to be immortal. Okay. We'll talk about that just in a second. Utanapishti, that's Akkadian. He has found life. Atrahasis is exceedingly wise. That's later Sumerian. All right, so if you are living after the flood, let's just say that we haven't gotten to Babel just yet. All right. We're still one big family. We're all together, not terribly spread out. Who would be the oldest person you know? And not by a little bit. He is, okay, how old was Noah when the flood came? He was 600 years. He was 600 years old when the flood came. When the flood came, we wouldn't even been born yet if we were born after the flood, obviously. He would have, if we were among the first, and I'm trying to think, one of the sons, maybe Japheth, had sons pretty early. And that even with those among the firstborn after the flood, Noah would have 600 years over them. Well, someone like him, and everybody, pretty much everybody else you know, except for Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their wives, and yeah, that would be your grandparents or your great aunt and uncle, they're significantly older, but not as old as Noah and his wife. Noah would seem like he who has long life, yes, he who has found life. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, it is believed that he is immortal. He can't die. But that would have just been a common thought. That's part of the story. And it is an ancient story. And just to make mention of how we even came across the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's not until the 1800s that Nineveh is found by archaeologists. And in Nineveh is a massive library. It's huge. And it's not filled with paper, it's filled with clay tablets. And these clay tablets are gathered. Those at the site can't read cuneiform. They can't read it. All they know is we have what's obviously a library, and all of these bits and pieces and completed tablets go actually to England, go to the British Museum, and it is later that those who read cuneiform don't grow on trees, if you didn't know that. There's not that many who can do that kind of work. If you want to start, you can learn how to do it. There's books and there's teachers and schools that will teach you how to do it. But it took time. And it wasn't until the early 20th century that it was found out about, here is this incredible, it is an epic poem. They called it the Epic of Gilgamesh. The ancients did not call it that. They had a different name for it. But we in the modern age call it that. And there was a particular man, and it would have been in the late 1800s, that made an announcement that it seemed as though, that it was the case that there is a tablet from Nineveh that has the flood story in it. We get to Plato, 360 BC. The flood is still being told. Plato, who's over in Greece, all right? He's a distance in geography, a distance in time, 360 BC, and he's still telling the story. And this is in his book Timaeus. He began to tell about the most ancient of things in our part of the world, about Pharonius, who is called the first man, that would be Adam, and about Niobe, and after the deluge. Now, we just scratch out some of the names, most ancient of things, and the deluge, all right? That he is talking about the flood. And this is how it went, is that Zeus is going to destroy mankind by the flood because of their wickedness. There is ancient man being great and wicked in deity, fill in the blank, because that's what everybody does, fill in the blank, is going to kill them by a flood. Prometheus tells Deucalion how to survive. He was to build a chest. That's not a boat, that's a box. Now the Greeks had at least that going for them. And where does Prometheus come into this? Deucalion, okay, I got that. That's their Noah. But you have Zeus and Prometheus. Prometheus, being the sneaky one, decides he doesn't want everybody wiped out. And so he tells Deucalion how you can survive this. Deucalion, his wife and children were saved. And now, let's talk about after the flood. After the flood, the world population totaled 8. Now, there's going to be children born fast. And we can in fact look at the text. It's not very long at all when we find that there are children being born there almost immediately. Arphaxad is not the first, but he is in fact mentioned because it made a special mention. He's 2 years after the flood, but he's not the first. He has 2 older brothers. Arphaxad is made mention because from Arphaxad is going to be Abram. Abram is going. Elam and Asher were born before Arphaxad, and it would seem as though they had to have been in the first 2 years. And it's very possible that you have. Hang on, let me get to where I was. Okay, this is from Shem. Yeah, obviously, Shem's wife may have been pregnant when they got off the ark. She may have been. Or Elam and Asher may be twins. Don't know. But the world population begins again, and they land in the mountains of Ararat. That's Genesis 8:4. Quite often we are taught it's Mount Ararat, but that's not what the text says. The text says mountains of Ararat, and that's a mountain range. And the ark rested there. And then they had to have moved east. They had to have settled east. And we see in Genesis chapter 9 that Noah has a vineyard. And he is making wine from that vineyard. All right, I know one man that can answer this question. How long does it take for a grapevine to begin, when you plant the grapevine, to begin to produce grapes? 4 years. It's 4 years. Yeah, maybe 3. Okay. So when he has a grapevine that's producing, we know he's been there for at least 3 to 4 years. We know he has. And they probably would have gotten out of the mountains of Ararat because it probably would not really support them very well. It gets kind of cold. You're in mountains. Mountains aren't the best place for crops. And so they had to have moved east, because in Genesis 11 and verse 12, we see where they came from the east to what was going to be, it's the Valley of Shinar, what was going to be Babel. And they're not going to name it Babel then. Babel means confusion. No one's going to name their city Confusion, especially when you're trying to impress people about it. That comes later after what occurs. Now, with the ark resting, the animals, except what the Noah and his family want to take, all the other animals go however they want. The birds are going to fly wherever they want. You have everything on the ark can just decide its direction and go and fill the earth with whatever animal. And now I want to bring in this before we leave Noah completely and the flood. Here are some things. All right. Now, everything that I've shown you today or even previously. It's not things I'm making up or things that I just discovered on my own. It's things that have been there for a while. Okay. All right, Chinese writing. Chinese characters represent words, not sounds. You cannot look at a Chinese character and say that is the sound of S. They don't have such a thing. That character can have one sound, rin, when it's over here, or a different sound entirely. And when it's combined with other things, it's that sound rin is not incorporated in it. And to a total outsider, to someone used to an alphabet, you're just lost. You're absolutely lost. It's not a phonetic system at all. It doesn't tell you how it's to be pronounced. Ours, when you learn the letters and learn how they behave, and yeah, we got some weird logic, dislogic in the way we pronounce certain words. All right, then you got it. You can read whatever word you want in English. But Chinese does not have letters guiding how a word is pronounced. It does not. And I am fully convinced, it's not just me, I am fully convinced that Chinese is one of those languages that came out of Babel. Because the Chinese were writing in the ancient of days. They were writing just like the Egyptians were writing, and very ancient, as the Babylonians were writing, and very ancient. So the Chinese were too. They were writing, and they had their own writing system. And you talk about different. There's no way that an Egyptian learning his language could go and read cuneiform among the Babylonians, among those at Ur, let us say. Nor could those in Ur then travel on to China and say, oh yeah, I know these words. You can't do it. When God confused the languages, He confused it very well. But there is something in the Chinese language we don't have. All right, this is our word, ship. The English letters convey the sound only. That's all it conveys. Nothing else. Just phonetically how it sounds. And you recognize the word and you know what it means. You have something immediately in your head as to what that means. With the Chinese, it's not like that at all. Here is the Chinese word for ship. Now understand, this is traditional Chinese characters. The mainland China, People's Republic of China, they did away with the older set, the traditional. They've gone to simplified. Now with the simplified, these things are obscured. But in the traditional, going back a number of years, these things are not obscured. But the word for ship is like this. It includes the symbol for 8, the symbol for person, and the symbol for vessel. And you have 8-person vessel means ship. How do you come up with that? And going from Babel to China does not require a ship of any type. None at all. It's a long walk. As a matter of fact, their word for migration is great walk from the west. And also includes stop. Now you stop. But that symbol for... Now, where do you come up with it? And here is the thing about the ancient Chinese words. They often incorporate, this isn't the only one, it's like the Chinese knew they had the information of Genesis 1 to Genesis 11 when everybody went their own way. It's like they had a knowledge of it. Well, they did have a knowledge of it. They would have known, they would have been told that we were created male and female in a garden. they would have known that. And that does come into their language. All right, we have gone a little bit over time. I thank you for being with us. And we will continue next week. Thank you.